Let's see if we can review 22 informal fallacies in less than 5 minutes. First, they're called informal fallacies because they're fallacies that don't depend on an argument's form. We have to look at the content of an argument to know whether it commits one of these 22 fallacies we're going to go over in this video. First category is the fallacies of relevance, which means that in these fallacies, the premises simply are irrelevant to the conclusion that's being argued for. The first version of these is the appeal to force, where you try to, bully somebody into believing something. The appeal to pity, where you try to play on somebody's emotion of compassion. Appeal to the people, where you try to play on people's desire to feel like part of a group. One of these is the direct approach, where you appeal directly to a group of people, invoking mob psychology, something like that. And this includes the appeal to fear. Another version of the appeal to the people fallacy is the indirect approach, which again plays on people's desire to feel like part of a group, but in different ways. So a few different forms of this are the bandwagon approach, appeal to snobbery, appeal to vanity, and appeal to tradition. Appeal to the people is not to be confused with the against the person fallacy, which is also known as an ad hominem, which is where you attack the character of a person making an argument rather than attacking the substance of that argument itself. Some versions of this are the abusive, the circumstantial, and the tu quoque or you too. Another fallacy of relevance is the accident fallacy, where you misapply a general principle to a situation it wasn't meant to apply to. There's also the straw man, where you mischaracterize somebody's argument to make it easier to argue against, missing the point, and a red herring, where you distract from the main point as well. These are all versions of fallacies of relevance. The next category of informal fallacies would be fallacies of weak induction. In this case, the premises are at least relevant to the conclusion that's being argued for, but they don't establish that conclusion to be true or even make it highly probable to be true. One version of the fallacy of weak induction would be an appeal to unqualified authority, where you invoke a person's authority in order to give greater weight to their conclusion, but their authority doesn't have relevance to the particular conclusion. The appeal to ignorance is where you cite the absence of evidence as reason to believe a claim. Hasty generalization is where you generalize about a large group of things or people based on a small sample when the small sample isn't representative of the large group. False cause fallacies are mistakes of causation, slippery slope, and weak analogy. These are all fallacies of weak induction. There are 4 subversions of the false cause fallacy, which aren't listed here, but discussed in chapter 3 of our textbook. The next category of informal fallacy are fallacies of ambiguity, fallacies of presumption, and fallacies of illicit transference. The 2 forms of fallacies of ambiguity discussed are the fallacy of equivocation, where the same word or phrase is used in different ways throughout the course of an argument, making it have the appearance of validity when it's not, and the amphiboly type of fallacy, which is where an ambiguity in word or phrase is exploited to offer a misinterpretation. Fallacies of presumption include begging the question or circular reasoning, complex question, false dichotomy, where 2 options are presented as exhaustive when they're actually not, and suppressed evidence, when evidence that's relevant to the conclusion is most intentionally withheld. Finally, our fallacies of illicit transference, which include improperly relating the wholes to the parts or the parts to the wholes of a group or entity. These include the composition fallacy and the division fallacy. These are all 22 of the informal fallacies discussed in chapter 3 of our book. There you have it, 22 fallacies in 5 minutes or less. For more details and examples of each of these fallacies, please turn to our textbook.